G'day and welcome to another brewery series video. This one's a little bit different. In this series we go to breweries, normally local breweries that I've been to a few times, and we'll get a recipe and we'll brew it at home, and you can compare your version to the brewery's version. Just remember, these are all the actual recipes, so if yours doesn't turn out quite right, maybe change a few of the processes to suit your system, and I'm sure you'll get there in the end. This brewery's a little bit different because I've never been there. It's in New Zealand. I haven't been to New Zealand since the 70s. But I have a good friend via the internet, Mike, and he started it with his mate Caleb. They were home brewing at home, watching videos of me and others, not just me. But they've gone professional and started up a small brewery now in Taranaki in New Zealand. One day I'll get there. It's their Pitch and Shout Red IPA. Oh, a very nice IPA. Nice aroma, nice taste. It's lovely. Let's not muck around, let's get into it. As I said, they're from Taranaki, New Zealand, which is about 2,000, nearly 600 kilometres as the crow flies from me. In miles, it's about 1,600 miles. So they're a fair way across the ditch, as we say in Australia, across the Tasman Sea. Here's a picture of Mike and Caleb on their home brew setup, and then on their professional setup. We have the shop front and the bar. There's the team of legends. Get that yeast in here. There's Mike, the winning belt, brew champion. So I start the brew day by filling up my brewing vessel. This happens to be a G40, and I fit about as much water as I can. I treat it for chlorine and chloramine. I use sodium metabisulfite. You can use Camden tablets if you prefer. I then take out what water I don't need, and I keep that for my sparge and for cleaning and whatever I need it for. For this recipe, I'm leaving about 23 litres in the mash tun. I add my salts, and then we get the grain in. I've scaled this recipe to 25 litres, just so I've got a couple of litres to play with. I'm using 3.2 kilo of Gladfield ale malt, 2 kilo of Munich malt, 300 grams of wheat malt, 300 grams of Gladfield medium crystal, and 50 grams of Gladfield roast barley. Follow the percentages on the screen and you can work out how much you need for your size batch. We're aiming for an original gravity of about 1.058. I fit my custom recirc pipe. Yeah, that'll do. I've got two of these, a longer one and a shorter one. I think that one will be alright for this one. I'm using the Grainfather app, and that started the recirculation. I turn it down a little bit, I get the flow to where I want it, make sure everything's looking nice, and I'll leave it alone. I come back and check it in a few minutes to make sure we've got some flow and we're not backing up. Everything was fine, so I'll leave it another 10 minutes till I take my pH reading. I like to give it a stir at this point, just to make sure everything's mixed in properly, but you probably don't need to. Meanwhile, I'd chilled my sample in the freezer. It takes 15 minutes. And we came out at 5.3. Very happy. If you stir, or even if you don't stir, it's always good to check it, see how the flow's going. This was looking great, so I left it alone. I much prefer this thing in the centre than sitting at the side like it does when you buy it. Everything's running fine, so we go straight into mash out. And when mash out is finished and you turn the pump off, always make sure you pull the hose out of the wort before you turn the pump off. That's in any system, otherwise you can suck grain back down into your pump. So I pull the basket and then I sparge with about 14 litres. So it gets to the boil and I take a reading. This is where things went a little crazy. The recipe I'd been given originally said we were looking for an OG of 1.054. My pre-boil was 1.052. I used a calculator and figured out if I added about 2 litres of water, it'd bring my numbers down to closer to where I wanted them. This is where my extra water comes in handy. But there must have been a bad reading somewhere. We'll get to that in a minute. 16 grams of Pacific Jade. Then we'll start the boil timer. That's 5-minute edition.
20 grams of Mosaic and 20 grams of Simcoe.
After the boil was over, I set it up for the whirlpool. It's important to note, do not cool for this whirlpool. Let it settle down, put the pump on, and whirlpool hot. If you lower the temperature of the whirlpool, the recipe will not work as intended.
And we've got 55 grams of Mosaic and 55 grams of Simcoe.
Whirlpool for about 10 minutes. Turn off the pump, let it settle down. I clear the lines of the pump and the chiller by just pumping into a jug at first. And once the lines have been cleared, we chill straight into the fermenter. At this stage, when the wort is cool, I can take a hydrometer reading as well. So I took the starting gravity, or the OG. So my digital refrac said 1059, and my hydrometer looked about the same. Now I spoke about looking for 1054 at the start of the video, but we were contacted by Mike and there'd been a mistake in the recipe sheet I had, and the actual gravity we were looking for was 1058. So we still overshot by a point, but it was lucky I added that 2 litres of water because it got us very close to where we should be. The reason I rushed to put those 2 litres in is because the same thing had happened the day before when I brewed the porter. I'd done the calculations and I had to add 2 litres of water. So I pitched 2 packets of Brew 97 and we fermented at 18.5 degrees. And again, once the gravity gets to about 1025, we can bump the temp up to around 20 degrees. I threw in my floaty hydrometer for this one. This floaty was sent to me from a great bloke in France. A big thanks and shout out to Julian from Floaty. And I'll whack the website on the screen. Okay, I just wanted to show you something. I'm going to use cryo for dry hopping, but you don't need to at all. But the thing with cryo, it takes up less space. You need to use less of it. That's why it costs you twice as much. So I'm using this, and I'm supposed to do 90 grams of Simcoe. I'm just going to throw the whole packet in. As you can see, that's why the alpha acid's so high. And that's a crop year 2020. Now the other ones I had, these are the ones I used in the brew. 2020. Like, look, you can't always tell what your hops are going to be when they turn up. Unless you ask where you're buying them from, you know, what year they are. But I know they're going to be pretty fresh. And I do back seal my hops. Sometimes 2 packs in 1 pack, because all I could get were these big plastic bags, and I was putting 1 bag in each, like emptying the bag in it, but then I found it's just a waste of space and a waste of bags. Now the reason I'm showing that is because I did have some cryo mosaic in the freezer. I pulled it out today, but it's crop 2018. Now that's unfortunate. I've probably had it in there a while, and it's been in that freezer all that time, but I won't use that for an aroma hop. I'll save that for something else. I might put it in as a flavour addition, but not aroma. So it's going to be cryo Simcoe, and I'll just use that 50 grams, and then I'll put in 90 grams of mosaic. So I bumped the temp up yesterday, I think it was, day before, and I went out this morning, there was still a bit of a crowsing, and I thought, oh, do I dry hop? And I probably should have dry hop this morning now looking at it. I could have taken a reading and made sure. So I dry hop just through the top because it's easy. I don't bother purging. The end of the ferment will fix that up. Purging will probably cause more damage than good. And we hit our final gravity of about 1.012. That puts the beer at about 6%. So that's it. A big thank you goes out to Mike and Caleb and their partners and everyone else who works at the brewery. Hang on, let me remember. Anita and Linnea. I probably pronounced that wrong, but I tried. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I've caused you dramas with their brewing after they've watched my videos. You might have seen Mike and Caleb in my 50th birthday video, but unfortunately I had to take that video down due to copyrights and music in the background. Even Chopper likes their beer. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share,
Thanks to my patrons. Without them, these videos couldn't happen. If you're interested, have a look at the Patreon. There'll be a link in the description. There'll be a link in the description to the brewery, and there'll be a link to the recipe, of course. Don't forget, support your local independent breweries. They need all your love, and you need their love. You'll make good friends. You'll drink good beer. Life is good. I'm going to sit back and enjoy the rest of this one. It's lovely. Cheers.